Hello, and welcome to the first rendition of Intuitive Insights with Mallory. I am so excited to be sharing with you today November's Intuitive Insights, and specifically sharing these around areas of wellness. So food, body image, exercise, societal ways that we're viewing health and wellness, and really diving into the energies that could be at play supporting you or challenging you throughout the month of November. Now, since this is my first time doing this, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Mallory Page. I'm a registered dietitian that views things from a lens of being non-diet and intuitive around food so that you can find the way of eating and living that truly makes you feel alive and amazing, but doing so without restrictions and without rules, because those things don't support us being fully intuitive. And a lot of what I see is that people that consider themselves to be very in tune with themselves will externalize their power around food, believe that they need to count macros or calories or any other thing. And although we're all different beings and all different things will work for us, I do believe that there is a way to really find a natural way of living without those things. So this video series that I plan to do every month moving forward before the month starts or on the first of the month. Also, can you hear my dog licking? He's right next to me in his kennel right now because there's people working outside, which they're also jackhammering. I don't think you can hear it, but we'll hope that you can't for sure. I got this idea from Lee Harris. He shares his ideas of what are going to be happening in the collective and in society every single month. And so I thought it would be really cool to do this in an area that I never see really done of wellness. And since I'm a dietitian, it feels like it's a really natural thing to speak about. And we all have to eat for the rest of our life as long as we're alive. And so we need to start talking more about how intuitive eating and intuition work together. So I have my little notebook here for 2024, and I did write these things down. So if you see me looking down at all, that is going to be why. Starting out with number 1, opening of the channel. So if you're familiar with my work, you know that I like to talk about how there are 3 phases to intuitive eating. There is opening of your brain to body channel, there is pinpointing your patterns for expansion, and then there's turning on your balanced intuition. And you need all 3 of these foundations to even be able to start to do the steps of intuitive eating. And I explain all of this in a free masterclass that I have, so I will link that down below if you would like to check that out. But what I'm getting from this first message is that this next month, this month of November. It doesn't help if I can't get the actual month right, does it? This month of November is a really good time to work on not only your hunger and fullness cues being present, but also listening to them. When we think about the brain to body channel, it is all about your body being able to tell your brain what it needs, and then your brain listening to that cue. And a lot of the time, because of how diet culture has affected us all, we don't really want to listen to the cue. We could think it's too late to be eating right now, or I don't need that food, or well, why am I hungry if I just ate a snack? And although those things can be signs to us of long-term patterns that maybe aren't beneficial with food, oftentimes, in order to really get to a place where you can be intuitive, you need to listen to those signs so that you can start to get your brain and your body synergistically communicating again and have what I like to call an open channel between the two. So I foresee that this month of November is an amazing time to do that. Of course, you could start with this free masterclass that I have about how to eat intuitively if you want to learn more about that, and ask any questions that you may have about this in the comments. Number 2, trust in the bigger picture. This feels so vague. When I wrote it down, I felt like, okay, yeah, we all get that. But I do think the specificity here is very important, because what I'm getting from this message is that you have to remember that when you are on a journey to becoming a version of yourself that feels like it is really serving you and it's so aligned and it makes you feel amazing, we think that once we start that journey, all of a sudden we're going to start to feel better right away. You know, oh, I'm gonna start the journey to food freedom. It's going to be absolutely incredible automatically, or I'm gonna start eating intuitively, and the second I do, I'm gonna notice night and day differences. And although those things can happen because miracles are 100% possible, it is also important to remember that by wanting to start something new and then starting something new, you are pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, because the only way to grow is to push yourself out of your comfort zone, because that discomfort is what then propels us to be more comfortable with new habits. So if you're in a stage right now where you are working towards a bigger dream within your wellness, it is so key to know that even if there are times where you feel like, oh my gosh, I feel even worse, I'm so freaking done with this, I don't want to do this anymore, to remember the bigger picture. Remember that you are wanting to achieve this goal, and all of the steps that you are taking are propelling you towards that goal. And one of my favorite things, I was just sharing this in my Live Unrestricted group the other day, is whenever you're going through the day, it can be easy to get caught up in your end goal and think, I'm so far from that. I'm so far from the big picture of what I want. But what we need to do is bring it down to a micro level. And every single time, just tune in with yourself and ask, is this decision going to propel me towards the version of myself that I want to be, or the past version of myself that I'm growing from? So for example, in my work, a lot of the time this comes up in someone eating a certain type of food, and they may be sitting there and thinking, oh my gosh, should I order the pastry though? Like, I already had this earlier, and then I'm also getting the latte. What decision propels you towards the version of you that you want to be with food freedom? Getting that pastry. And of course, this is different for everyone. I'm just using one example. So remembering that, remembering the bigger picture. And I feel you with this, not with food, but I've been having to do some deep trust in the bigger picture of what I'm building versus how I'm feeling in the moment. At least when I'm filming this, it's towards the end of October, but I feel this is going to continue. Number 3 is extremism abound. So there is more extremism, in my opinion, than ever before online around wellness, and honestly in general, because what I do see, and I should have said this at the beginning, is I always see that the themes that show up with food usually are mirroring the ways that society is unfolding and the trends and things that it's engaging in. So there are, I could talk about this ad nauseum, so I won't fully go into it today, but I think we can all agree that we're in a time of a lot of extremism, a lot of polarity, a lot of divisiveness, especially in the US. And this is going to show itself within food patterns. We're already seeing it, because you have on one hand people saying they only eat meat, or they only eat meat and butter, or they always stick to these rules and you must stick to this calorie amount, or just any other thing that feels very extreme, rigid, controlling. And then on the other side, we have the movement of pushing against diet culture. And because there is so much extremism that's kind of swinging like a pendulum back to this extremism, then the other side is also sometimes becoming more extreme. And I resonate with being a non-diet dietitian, but I just want to call things out as I see them. Sometimes we can lean really far to the other extreme to try to combat this, and that's what I sometimes see. If like you never need to think about like what you eat, just do whatever you want in the moment, right? And it is never a good thing to try to incorporate something if it feels uncomfortable, right? Those aren't the best examples, but I think that you get what I'm saying. I feel like this extremism is still playing out, and so it's so important to ground yourself into what works for you. And my favorite saying with this is that if something seems extreme, then it is likely not healthy. And I know that that is a very bold statement to make, because of course there are the few and far between, the 1% of people that thrive on these extreme types of mindsets, diets, rules, trends, and there are a larger subset of people that believe they thrive on these things, even if they may not. But overall, for most of us, we don't thrive in those extremes. Just like most of us don't devote our entire life to becoming a monk, but you may still have a meditation practice, you know? Of course, that doesn't mean that you're not doing enough. Number 4. Oh, one more thing to say about this. If you are into astrology, and if you're not, just leave this. Leave anything in this video that doesn't resonate with you and say, yeah, Mallory, you lost me with that, and I get it. There's literally no offense here. It's take and leave what works for you. If you are into astrology, you will likely know that Pluto is currently in the last degree of Capricorn, and it has been in this sign, oh my gosh, for so many years, and now I'm forgetting what it is. I think it's like 28 years, something like that. Again, I'm not an astrologer, I'm not an expert. And Capricorn is all about top-down structures, the hierarchy, people at the top that are in power. And this is something that I think is playing out with food as well. And I think we're really going to start to see that shift as Pluto then moves into Aquarius. Number 4, body rejection. As I wrote this down, I felt a true pain because I remember so much when my body started to reject the choices that I was making and how hard it was. But I shouldn't say that, because my journey is not your journey. Don't allow that to be something that you project onto what you will experience. But what this means is that you may have for a long time felt like you knew that your habits were maybe not the greatest around wellness. Maybe you know that you want to incorporate movement, but you continue to avoid it. Maybe you know that you want to stop weighing yourself, but you can't seem to stop weighing yourself every time. Maybe you're dealing with binging and you know it's not serving you, but you feel like you can't stop. I believe in the month of November, we are going to be asked to really shed these things for this final time. And your body is going to kind of, for some people, if you resonate with this, don't allow this to be a fear thing, okay? But I think your body may say, hey, we're done with this. So let me give you an example. For a long time in my journey with food, because my history is that I had an ED and I had kind of the wellness obsessed version of it. So for a long time, I knew that the habits that I was engaging with were not supporting me. Yes, there was a period of denial where I thought, no, what I'm doing is great for me and it's so good and I'm so healthy. Yes, but then there was a period of time, for me, this was my sophomore year of college, where I recognized, you know, this is probably not so great. I think this is actually impeding my life. I kind of have to figure this out. And so I wanted to do something about it. You know, I went to a therapist and then I basically ghosted that therapist. Like, I did all the things. I always say this. My journey is like a great example of what not to do. But then there was a certain point where all the control that I had exhibited, right, all the rules that I had around food that I had been effortlessly able to follow, started to change, and I started to binge all the time, and I started to feel really out of control, and my body started to change, and I felt so frustrated because it felt like my body rejecting these habits, rejecting the structure and rigidness. And of course, again, I just want to reiterate, this does not need to be scary in any way. I think that the growth version of this, the positive way to look at it, is to think about, no, like, you are having a fated time to be able to step into a version of yourself that feels greater. And how cool is that? How cool is it that your body will communicate with you and say, these habits aren't working? You know, that is the positive spin on what I'm saying. But that's how it came through. So, number 5. Trust in your gut. This felt redundant because we already had trust in the big picture, and I sat there trying to reword it, and this is what continued to drop in. So let me share the actual specificities of this. Notice the feeling that does not make sense. You're probably sitting there thinking, what? So less logic, more gut instinct is the simplistic way I would describe this. So you know when you are walking through a bookstore and you're just meandering, and then randomly you look over and this book catches your eye, and And this book is about making loose leaf teas. And you think, I've literally never in my entire life even liked tea. I'm a coffee girl through and through. And I think tea tastes like weird grass. I don't know why I'm going with this analogy. Okay? But you feel so called to go look at this book about tea, and you're flipping through it and you're kind of thinking, yeah, okay, this is cool, but again, I've never liked tea, so why am I feeling drawn to this book? And then you almost go to put it down, but right before you put it down, you get a glance at the sticker on the back and you see that it is only $5.99. And first you're like, wait, 5 is my lucky number. So that's fun. I don't know if you like number stuff. I love to see numbers and be like, oh, I love that number. Anyways, so you see that and you also think $5.99 off of $17.99, that's a great deal. And you think, again, I don't need this. But then again, you go to put it down and someone walks by you and they go, oh my gosh, that's my favorite book. And you sit there and you think, okay, well, if this many random things happened, let me just buy the freaking tea book. And so you get the tea book, and next thing you know, you go to the farmer's market and you see this girl that's selling loose leaf teas and you think, oh my gosh, it's just time. And so you finally make a tea, and guess what? You end up loving the tea, and or the tea ends up making you feel better. It gives you a habit that you really enjoy. Obviously, I'm not saying the specific example is going to play out for you. I do not know if you will be finding a book about tea, and this is a more extreme way of putting it, but the whole point is trust the things that maybe don't make sense. And listen, I love logic. If you listen to my podcast, you know I'm a logic girl. I went to school to be a dietitian. It's a science-based field, but we also know that logic and our intuition, they can mesh together. And this is that time to start to allow them to mesh. So even if it's something like what we were talking about earlier, of when you feel like you're hungry even though you just ate and you don't feel like it makes sense, what if you can trust that? What if you can eat even when it feels scary? Or what if you feel like you've always been doing the same exercise routine, but randomly you feel so called to go to jujitsu? I feel like I need to go to jujitsu because I keep saying over and over again in my examples and different programs and stuff, jujitsu. I'm like, do I need to do jujitsu? But anyways, maybe you see that and you think, oh, I don't need to do that, or I don't know, and just try it, you know, even if it doesn't make sense. Number 6 is Revelations Revealed. This one is really interesting, and I have been feeling like this was going to happen for a while. I think this also relates, if you like the astrology stuff, to Pluto moving out of Capricorn, but I also just think it relates to the way that our world is positioned right now and some of this extremism. There are a lot of cases right now going on in the world that are all about exposure. And I believe that we're going to start to see some exposure around scammy or just dishonest practices within the food companies, within influencers, within businesses. I think we're going to start to see it in a lot of areas. And I think it's really important to note that I'm not sitting here, I'm not a food company hater. You know how there's a lot of people online that are constantly talking about the food companies are evil and they're out for our worst, like they're out for our demise. Obviously, whenever we get to really, really large company sizes that have lots and lots of money, there are typically challenges that are going to be present within those companies. But the way that it is talked about online, it gets, again, pushed into extremism. Back to our theme. Yet, I do find that there are a lot of things that I see on social media that are just not fully honest, that are scammy. A really common example that I see right now is people that are saying you can do intuitive eating for weight loss, like you can focus on doing intuitive eating to lose weight. People saying that you can do macro counting and have food freedom. All of these types of things, that's what I'm seeing in my field. But I also think it is just any company, person, brand that has not been telling the full truth. I think we're going to start to see these things exposed in November, and I think that will continue. Okay, this is our last one, number 7. I can't believe we're there. Diet culture doubling down. Unfortunate to even write this down, but I do feel like we're going to see a doubling down of all diet culture associated things in November because of everything that I've been saying before, just how people can sense that there are things changing, there are tides turning. No matter what happens or not, we know for a fact that the world is shifting in so many different ways. And so that will show up in the way that diet culture is being spread and presented. And to give a little backstory on this, and I'll link some podcast episodes where I talk about this more below. We in 2020, into 2020, but especially 2021 and 2022, saw a rise in the body positivity anti-diet movement. There were a lot of people that were speaking about this stuff. It was much more taboo to speak about weight loss, to speak about smaller bodies, to use terms like skinniness. And then in 2023, beginning of 2023, maybe end of 2022, we saw a shift back, slowly but surely, more into diet culture. And that rhetoric is very present online. Right now, there is a lot of talk about weight loss. There is a lot of talk about people's bodies. There is a lot of discussion, especially with the introduction of Ozempic and so many other things. And so I really do foresee that that will continue and even sometimes get more extreme. And I'm not trying to say this again to feel like that's just faded and that's just going to happen. I share this because I feel like on top of all of the stuff that can happen in the holidays, that can happen with the election, that can happen with just everything going on, it is so important to make sure you are protecting your mental space. And if you go online and it is not serving you, it would be a good time to say, no, I'm not going to engage with this right now. I'm going to go offline. I'm going to mute these accounts. I'm going to unfollow. I'm going to say that I'm not interested in this. Just anything that you see. I mean, I've talked about this again on the podcast, not to mention it 600 times, but even the rise of pro ANA content online and really sad stuff that has been circulating, which makes my heart truly ache to even see this stuff. So protect yourself, protect your energy. I have a free, completely free community group that I'm going to be starting offline. It may even be ready by the time this video is getting put out. So I would love to welcome you there. There's going to be live calls once a month. There's going to be free resources like my free intuitively eating masterclass will be in there once I get this group ready. There will be a lot of people that are pushing against, you know, these unhelpful narratives and building the life that really feels best for them. So yeah, if you want to join that, that would be a great place to be off social media, get support, and all of those things in between. So those are the 7 themes that I feel like are going to be coming in November. Please remember, this is not saying this is your life and you must follow this. This is just something that if you found something that resonated with you, that felt like, yeah, you know, that's good to keep in mind, or you know what, I do want to focus on that. Awesome. If you went through and there were things that did not resonate with you, leave them at the door. I am not here to try to tell you what you should and should not be feeling or should not be thinking. That is not my style. So I loved getting to do this with you. I'm so excited for these videos to come. Please let me know if you like them. Let me know if there's any feedback that you have. It means so much to me because I always want to create stuff that feels supportive. And this feels new, it feels different, it feels like something I've never done, but that's also what makes it feel really exciting. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And if you watched to the very end, let me see a turkey in the comments because we're entering into Thanksgiving season for those of us that are in the US. I'd love to see a turkey. Or if you're not into the whole turkey sharing, you could also just share some lovely fall leaves because I am still in the fall mood, even though here in Colorado, it will be shifting. It won't be as fall-y, but that's okay. That is okay. Okay, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you. I appreciate you more than I can ever explain, and I will for sure see you back here for a December version of the Intuitive Insights for the month. Bye.